Hi everyone, it's Matt with Sparrowhawk Games again. I'm going to do another game showcase on something I've been working on. I started working on this initially as just a way to script up something nice and portable that you could use to control a camera in-game and switch between third and first person. I can highlight that in the end of the video when I talk more about the technology, but I call this level, this little prototype, I call it PlatformJumper because it consists of a series of platforms that spawn at random intervals and heights and distances from each other, and you try and jump all the way up to the top. You have the ability to, if you right click and there is a platform that is within an appropriate distance, you can teleport straight to it. The maximum number of teleports you can have saved up at any time is 3. This is a good example of sort of a funny way that the random level generation made something. I could try and jump on this, but I feel like I'd bump into that and fall in the water. So I'll just go ahead and left click on that one, and it zipped me straight up there right away. So the next one I'm pretty sure I can jump to. There's no need for me to waste a teleport on it. There we go. Next one's not too bad. Next one looks like it might be kind of funny, so I'm going to hold down right click while I jump, just in case I need to zip to either that one or that one if I start to fall. I kind of want to aim for that one. Let's try that. Okay. Got it. Alright. Got 2 teleports. I think I can make that one. Yep. I don't think I'm jumping out of here, so since that one has an orb on it, I'll just go ahead and do it. Oh god. I wonder. Ooh, look at that. I could just go straight to that one. Yeah. And without even realizing what I was doing, I made this so that I could teach myself some things about raycasting, so that I could select things that are in my view and highlight them and do things with them. I wanted to work with prefabs and positioning them in a sequential order, sort of procedural way to put these platforms in the game like this. I like doing pickups and stuff. I wanted a little bit of practice with the UI. I've got a menu here, a little pause menu that actually freezes. So I taught myself some things about freezing the time and the animations and everything in the game. So yeah, it's just a fun little prototype I came up with. Let's see if I can make it to the top here. Yeah. Stupid editor bugged out there. There we go. I'm at the top. Yay me. Okay. And to show you that the platform generation is indeed different every time, there's one configuration. And click restart. And the reason I'm showing you guys this in the editor instead of a build is when I built this thing and I tried doing it with a bunch of different versions of Unity, I checked my code, I looked all over. In my build version, when you click this restart button, it just crashes and you don't even get an error message. Nothing shows up in any of the logs. It's pretty irritating. So since I found myself in the mood to get this video out there, I went ahead and made it. So yeah, this is my little prototype here. This is my little platform jumper. If all you really wanted to see was the basics here, you can go ahead and stop, because the rest of the video is going to be me blabbing about my scripts and stuff. Okay, so you can see in the scene view before I hit play that there really isn't even anything here. There's not even a player. Well, there is a player, but he's up in the air, way up there. I basically have the player free fall once the game starts. And then once the platforms are all spawned, it zips you straight to the bottom platform. In any event, the script that creates the platforms was one of the most enjoyable aspects of working on this prototype. let's see. No, that's just the platform. This is the code for the platform itself. I guess I could show this. So this script has a reference to its own renderer. It's got a spawn location for the orbs, and that would be something that it gets from its own children. It's the first child object of the platform. There's an orb chance float variable that goes between 0 and 1, and the spawn chance, which is set in the editor, you can tweak it between 0 and 100. 100 will get you an orb on every platform. 0 will get you none. I think I have it at about 0.2 or 0.3, but I wanted that in the editor so people could kind of mess with it. Got a custom little spawn orb function here that will make whatever you tell it to spawn in the editor at the spot for this platform. And this is just a fancy way of saying orient it the same way as just itself. Quaternions are weird. So this stuff happens every single time a platform is made. And the script that instantiates these platforms is this thing. So it's got a reference to the prefab for the platform. It's got a reference to the player. It's got a publicly shared variable in the editor that you can tell it how many platforms you want in your level. It has a list of all the platforms as they get spawned, so that later down the road, if I decide I want to be able to do anything like get rid of them, or it's just a way for me to keep track of them. So it's got a boolean here to track whether or not the player has moved. This sort of sets everything to some initial values. It spawns the first platform, and then the update function, everything, this is where all the procedural spawning of it all happens here. So the platforms to spawn variable represents the number of platforms you want in the level. And every time the update function runs on a game update tick, you get a check here to see if the number of platforms left to spawn is at 0 or less, meaning you're done. And if the player hasn't been moved to the first platform, that's what that means, go ahead and move the player using another function I made. So after it's done that first check, then it comes in and picks all these cool little random values here. So it picks an axis, and by axis what I meant was like a compass axis. It's going to choose to either go forward, backward, left, or right using just an integer. And then the posneg value here, it's going to choose whether or not it's going to go along either of these directions, whether or not it's going to go this way or that way. And then in terms of axis, I actually go ahead and assign a vector3 value to the direction that it'll use later when moving. The multiplier here is set to 0 by default, and then based on what I get from the positive-negative decision, it gets set to a -1 or a +1. So then we are going to make another float that is a random float value for the amount the platform is going to go up. I want it to go up every time, because for now in this prototype I just want it to be a series of platforms that goes all the way up. So that's going to be between 1 and 3. It's going to be a decimal value between 1 and 3. And then we're going to take the transform of the platform spawner, so in this case of our script ourselves, move up by the random distance. We're going to decide on the distance we're going to go whichever lateral direction we've chosen. That's going to be between 3 and 6. And then it's going to translate by direction, and then it's going to multiply that by the amount of distance it's going to go, and then the multiplier, which is determining if it's going to go front or back or left or right. And then once the spawner has moved itself to the next position, it's going to make a platform, and that platform will spawn, and it'll either have an orb or not based on those other settings. So the spawn platform functions just instantiating a platform object at itself, and then it's going to add it to the list object of platforms, and then it's going to do, this is key, obviously without this you get infinite platforms, which I don't think anyone would really like that. I don't think your computer would like it either. So it decrements that, and then the move player here goes and finds the very first platform. It sets the position of the player to the same object that I used for the orbs. It sets you there, marks the player as moved, and at that point the platform spawner script is done. Some of the other scripts I have in here that are kind of neat, I made a little object here called a, well, what else do I have? Camera controller. I think that basically just zooms in and out and stuff. That's not really that key to this. I might make another video about all my camera stuff, but the lerping was neat. In this project I got fairly comfortable with coroutines and lerping. Lerping is linear interpolation. It takes two positions and then a float value, and it moves this thing towards this thing by this much proportion. So right here all I have is a lerp coroutine that takes a target and a thing to move. And you can call this from anywhere that has a reference to lerper. Or I think if I were to make this static, I actually think I could just use it from anywhere in the game and just type lerper.lerp and put two things in it, and it would just do it. So in any event, we've got a starting rate of movement here that is 0.01. I want it to start slow. And it is going to find the distance between the two objects, and it's going to get the collider of the thing that's moving. This is something I had to do because it was trying to lerp my player through platforms, and he was kind of getting stuck. So it finds a reference to the thing that's being moved, it finds a reference to its collider, and it turns it off. And then it finds a reference to the thing's rigid body, and it turns that off, because I actually found that as the player was attempting to be tracked or beamed over to the platform, the Unity physics was fighting against it, and it was just kind of so I'm just going to turn off the rigid body, turn off the collider, set the gravity to 0, and set the velocity of the rigid body to 0. So then I've got, and this is the power of a coroutine right here. You have to have, I don't know if you have to, but I don't think there's much of a point to using a coroutine unless you've got some kind of loop. So while the distance between these two things is greater than 0.1, we're going to take the thing that's moving, we're going to set its position to an intermediate position between the two, and the proportion of movement is going to be rate. And then we're going to take the update the distance variable here. Obviously that's like programming 101. If you don't update the thing that the loop depends on, you won't get out of the loop. Anyway, once we've done whatever brief little portion of movement for that tick of the coroutine, we're going to increase the rate by 1.4. We're going to yield back to the game for a second. It's going to come back. It's going to check the distance again, and it's going to keep lerping, and it's going to keep doing it faster and faster and faster. Eventually we'll get within 0.1, and at that point that's close enough that the player can't really tell at that point that I'm going to go ahead and take the thing that's being lerped and just zip it straight to where it needs to be, turn the colliders back on, turn the gravity back on, and we're there. I've got a bunch of other scripts in here about, let's see, collectible manager. This is just a script that I made to keep track of how many of the little teleport orbs you're allowed to have. I obviously don't want people to have too many because then they can just zip all the way up to the top. I wanted people to have to kind of think about when they were going to use them. So this is a real basic getter setter thing here that will help track the total. This code right here will prevent people from getting over the maximum. So anyway, that's pretty much all the technology behind this little prototype I came up with. It could probably be fleshed out into a game or a strong game mechanic for a game. Before I made this, I had played all of Story About My Uncle and some of the game Valley, and I'm not saying at all that this is on that level, but without realizing it, I kind of ended up making something that, because those games involve jumping and having something that you can do at the last minute if you feel like you're about to fall. So it was just kind of funny to realize that I had come up with something like that. Anyway, I'm very grateful for watching this, and please go check out my website at www.sparrowhawkgames.com. Thanks, and have a good one.